Yes, it is now.
Right, wonderful. Okay, so welcome, President Pietruszkiewicz and Erin. It's wonderful to have you here. We're very excited to talk about the story of the University of Evansville in the last few months. Some very important things have happened. First of all, you renewed your Changemaker Campus designation, and we're extremely excited about it. It's really cool, everything that you've been doing with the university and the story and the history that we have with Ashoka U. So now I think one of the most amazing achievements that we've had in our Changemaker community is the grant that you've received for the Promised Neighborhood. So would you be able to share with us the story, the vision that you had as you applied, and what happens now that you've received the grant?
Recipe, you want to take that one, or
Erin, why don't you start on? Well, you can start on that one.
Yeah. So first, I want to thank Ashoka. In very large part, we might not be here had we not started the designation process back in 2017, 2018. In applying to become a Changemaker Campus the first time, that really helped us put the infrastructure around the changemaking programs that led to the community bringing us this opportunity in the first place. Mm-hmm. So you had a hand in this, and we thank you for all the support and the guidance and the pushing and the exchanges and everything that made us be better at what we do. Mm-hmm. And that's really the origin story of it, is that our community has tried to get one of these many times. 4 that we know of. And the most recent, it was brought to the University of Evansville because of the recent increase of our work out in the community through Change Labs, Changemaker Challenge. They thought, okay, we've tried this numerous ways before, but we think we might be the right partner this time. And fortunately, Pres P completely agreed and gave us permission to go for it. And so we could really dive into how do we not just apply to become a promised neighborhood, but how do we leverage being an Ashoka Changemaker Campus to make it the most unique application in the country. Yeah. And we're hearing from some of our US DOE program officers that it really does stand out across the board, from the budget to the data and program evaluation section to the programming, and certainly, of course, to one of our flagship programs, that's Change Lab, which is how the university across disciplines can really harness its student and faculty talents for the community needs in an empathetic way. So we're not prescribing the Change Labs. What we're going to do at this time, we're going to surface those ideas from the kids and family. So short answer is that the university's vision was really to leverage our expertise and our strengths to bring these partners together, to use collaborative design thinking, human-centered design to build the programming that would be focused on the highest concentrated need. And from there, we were able to get really targeted with our results. Anything you'd like to add to that, Prisby?
Well, I think the designation in 2017, 2018 was really the catalyst for a lot of the things that we're doing right now. In fact, I don't particularly like mission statements. I think there are typically lots of words that include lots of things, unless you get one that you really like. And I think Ashoka was the impetus for us to change our mission statement to what it is today. And I think the idea of using the Promised Neighborhood as a vehicle to live our mission is the very definition of an example of the types of things that universities can do when they decide that the community is really the classroom. And so our mission is really is pretty simple. It's 18 words. It's to empower students to think critically, act bravely, serve responsibly, and live meaningfully in a changing world. And to me, that's kind of the definition of what a Promised Neighborhood grant is all about. That's what I think the Change Lab programs we have been doing over the course of the last 5 or 6 years in our community has kind of led up to the culmination of a Promised Neighborhood grant that infuses over $62 million into 18% of our Vanderburgh County population. That's going to make a difference in intergenerational poverty, and we know we can't do that overnight.
Exactly. Wonderful, and congratulations. And the Change Labs remind me of a story that Erin shared sometime earlier in the year about students that got involved with the water in the city. And it was these does this have to do with the kind of the proposal and the specifics of getting involved with the community?
Oh, that's a great question. So we have a couple of different water projects. So I'm wondering which one I mentioned. I'm assuming it was probably Robert Lopez's Toyota Trinity Stormwater Project, which is a massive undertaking by one of our students who's about to graduate. He came to us through Bosse High School, which is one of the Promised Neighborhood schools. Of course, we didn't know that at the time. That was now 4.5 years ago. He'll finish this December, and he was failing that class. He was not doing well in school, probably not going to go to college, but he got connected with an idea. And it was the first time I'd really seen someone else's idea change a kid's life. So he got connected with the Evansville water and sewer engineer, who just happens to be a UE grad, and asked for some help. He had to solve this major environmental problem of keeping combined stormwater out of the Ohio River. He knew how to do that, but he didn't know how to make it beautiful or inspirational. And so he came to one of our Changemaker dinners, which was an idea we received from Dr. Scott Sherman, a longtime Ashoka fellow. And he said, I need some help. We connected him to this kid at Bosse High School, and the two of them worked together for years in our Change Lab program. So that's really UE's vision. That's one of hundreds of stories we could share kind of like that, where we are a go-between between our community need and our student and staff and faculty passions. And thanks to UE's investment in this office, we can kind of act as a matchmaker. So now that school is one of our Promised Neighborhood schools, and more students will get to see that project through after Robert graduates.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you. And this really makes me think of the leadership and how your leadership is different and is truly innovative. And like you're saying, a middle person, and how do you feel your vision and your leadership can move these kind of very we would think natural connection between a community and a university, or the city and a university, but that doesn't happen much, right? So how do you go about this vision and your leadership and your tactics, the process that you've taken to make it real and make it happen?
Sure. Well, that's top to bottom. So I'll let Pres P start with UE's vision and how we connect in the community, because it's definitely change making is infused into everything we do. And then I can certainly speak to specifically how our size and our interdisciplinary focus allows us to be really nimble. Pres P, you want to talk about UE's being known for leadership?
Yeah, I think about higher education and the changes that higher education is going through right now. And there's perception that the value of a four-year degree doesn't make a difference. And I think that's the completely wrong approach, and we'll do our part to be able to change those perceptions. The perceptions are that, we live in an ivory tower and we don't live on Main Street, and we got to do better than that. So there's an interesting background about how we get there. One is university related, and then one is kind of a personal aside. So from a university perspective, we didn't begin as the University of Evansville. We began as Moores Hill Male and Female Collegiate Institute, right, just outside of Cincinnati. Okay. And in 1990, so it started in 1854. In 1917, a couple of businessmen came up to Moores Hill and said, "We want you to move to Evansville." And we said, "Yeah, right." And they said, "No, we really do." And we said, "Okay, fine. If you really want us to move, raise $500,000 and we'll move." Right. And they did. And so we moved. Wow. So, we wouldn't be here without DNA. Them. So I think part of it is that we have a responsibility to give back to the community that brought us here. Yeah. So that's kind of the underlying story about how we got to be who we are. I think the second one is more personalized, and it's about relationships. Yeah. I do think that universities and communities and the city should be able to work together. And as you mentioned, they often don't. They often maybe coexist at best. My story was very different here. Before I started here as president in 2018, before I even got here, I was announced as the president. I was moving from a different place. And I happened to be in town 1 week, and the mayor asked me if I would be willing to go to lunch. And, of course, you say yes to the mayor. Yeah. So I said yes. We went to lunch, and we had a great time talking for an hour about the city, about the university. And towards the end of lunch, he said, I think we could be really good partners together.
Wow.
And, I took that to mean both the city and the university and the mayor and the president, willingness to be able to work together. And this is kind of the work that we've put in over the course of the last 5 years to be able to get to where we are now. Promise Neighborhood doesn't exist without a willing city and business leaders that are willing to invest their time and energy and resources to make this work.
Yeah.
This Promise Zone or Promise Neighborhood designation has only happened 91 times before since the Department of Education started the program in 2010. But there's only been 11 universities ever that have had a Promise Neighborhood designation.
Right.
And it's the one in which the city and the university are collaborating together. And as Erin likes to say, the only one in which a city and a university that is a Changemaker Campus has been able to work together. Right. And I think that's the very definition of what we ought to do to make our communities better. If our city gets better, so does our university. So there's a little selfish part to it. But as our university gets better, so does our city. And I don't think that necessarily communities think that way, but that's the way that we do, and that's the way our city does.
Wonderful. And that makes me think of your metrics of success, right? What are your specific ways in which you measure the success, both of the university and of your interaction with the community and with the city? And recently, as I was saying, Ashoka has built the Changemaker Index, and we see the changemaker competencies of people and what's their journey of change making throughout their lives, right? And how their experiential learning, which is something that you're providing through the labs, what is the way in which they see their own sense of leadership, their own sense of empathy. And as I was saying earlier, there is a design of a research happening together with Erin and Derek. And I wonder if we could talk a little bit about it. Like, how do you see the correlation of success at the moment when the world is changing so rapidly and so strongly with the success measures that higher education used to have? And so maybe they were only academic, but at the moment, through what you're doing, you can see that they're very relational. They're very much in terms of being aware, and not only aware, but participating into the issues around you. So how do you see success now in your community and at the university?
Yeah, sure. You just jogged something in my memory from the Ashoka exchange that Pres P and I went to when we did receive the designation out in San Diego. And I remember one of the keynotes where university presidents were getting up there talking about the rate of change in society and what it means for higher education, that, students can arrive their freshman year and a job they thought they wanted isn't there by their sophomore year. And so that the rate of change in society just requires us to rethink what we're preparing students for, and certainly at least how we're preparing them, even if it's in a more traditional discipline. And I remember a couple of universities talking about how they'd reimagined all of their classes to focus on a handful of things that were important to their region. So out in California, USD and others saying, we're going to look at immigration, climate change, things that were ocean warming, things that are affecting our region. And even from the lens of creative writing or philosophy or biology, it doesn't matter. Everybody needs to at least think about how their students could work on these things. And I thought that was a beautiful vision for higher education of the future that really embraces the historic civic mission of a university. It's just that the world outpaced how universities traditionally operate. And what's been so exciting about working at the University of Evansville under Pres P's leadership, because I can assure you he's not a normal university president, is that he acts, he believes in that action, deeply believes in our mission statement. And so when the universities needed to do something, we know it's going to get done. And we know that sense of openness to collaboration comes down into our students, and it becomes a very exciting place to be. So for me, success looks like us articulating that vision to prospective students clear enough that they get that this is the best place to be if you want to make the world a better place, regardless of what you're studying. And we are starting to see that. Even here in our office, where we directly use change making to recruit students, we've seen a dramatic increase in just the last few years. And since the Promise Neighborhood announcement, we've even seen a few say, I want to be a part of that, because it touches every discipline. Wraparound care is not just social work, it's data analysis, it's hands-on, it's political science, sociology, archaeology, it's all of the things. So I think successful universities in the future are going to embrace the rapid rate of change and figure out how to make their majors more concrete and relevant to students.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, think about this as a broader context about kind of the state of higher education, where more than half of the population, half of the adult population, doesn't believe that we provide value. And so in a sense, if what higher education does is provide a diploma only, I think they're right. But I think if you add the experiences into that same kind of mixture of the classroom being in an actual classroom and a classroom being out in the community, and making a fundamental difference in how our communities think about themselves, then I think we've accomplished a lot more than simply providing a diploma that we all have on a wall, figuratively or literally, someplace. I think you can do that in lots of different places. You know, you got a choice of 3,000 of them in the United States. I think the differentiating factor is what happens at that university while you're there. And is it more than simply the substantive learning that happens in a particular discipline? And do our students leave with a bigger and brighter responsibility, social responsibility, for making our world a little bit better? I think that would be good for our university, but I also think that would be good for our world more broadly. Is if we embrace that responsibility. And, you know, you measure things the way that we always have, right? Are we being successful in our students getting jobs in the areas that they came here for? Because if that's the case, our employers are valuing what we're doing. But I think more broadly is, in addition to those jobs, are they also volunteering on boards and doing service projects? And we hope they come here with that. But we even hope even more that they leave here with that responsibility to be a little bit better.
And
Wonderful.
Edie, just a quick last thought on that is thinking about, for now, we're the only Ashoka Changemaker Campus. If we do this right, I hope next time they do this, I see 6 or 7, or maybe every applicant, right? Because the strength in the Ashoka Changemaker Campus network to guide communities through a Promise Neighborhood application, it's an untapped resource that the federal government hadn't even thought of. So as we've been working with our technical service providers, that's been noticed. And they even said, here's a couple of regions of the country that we haven't been able to make much headway in the rural West and things like that. And so I said, if you have any connections, so they're wanting to know more about Ashoka and how it's impacted our programming. And I think it could really change rural poverty throughout the country in a lot of interesting ways. So there's a connection there for you guys.
Thank you so much. That sounds wonderful. And I really agree. And it makes me think of the comment that you just made, President B, which is about how communities think of themselves, right? And how they're ready and renewed to act in a different way because they see other possibilities. And I think, as you know, our slogan is everyone a change maker. And this is exactly that, right? So how the communities can act on their own behalf and can innovate themselves and can change their situation for others together, collaborating, innovating together. So this is what you're saying, right, Erin? I mean, the possibilities for some communities are huge.
Yeah, there might be a nonprofit out there that's doing wraparound care that has no idea there's a Changemaker campus in their state or their city, and just haven't had that connection yet of how they could work together to bring those resources to their community. That really excites me. So if you do bring the exchanges back, UE always sends a team. I'm sure we would welcome doing a presentation on this or a workshop or something.
Thank you. Thank you. And I mean, we are an interview, so maybe I shouldn't ask, but I will. Would you like to host an exchange one day?
I don't speak for you, but that guy does.
I think we
yes.
would be very open to the possibility.
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, I mean, I don't want to not ask about a very specific story of that you have, that you, or that is happening at the moment that you would love to share right now. And then I will ask about the future. So do you have any stories that you would like to share now about what's happening at the moment?
Well, I think the most significant one continues to be that designation as a Evansville promise neighborhood. But that's a $30 million federal grant. But for a university that's our size, with 2,500 students or so, that is not designated as a Research 1 institution, typically doesn't attract a lot of grant funding. And our university right now has over $40 million of active grants in process, and all of those are related to how we relate to our designation as an Ashoka Changemaker Campus. It is dealing with food insecurity in Evansville. It is making sure that access to groceries and fresh produce in all parts of our food desert, right? All of those things are part of how the rest of our community have embraced this whole idea. We might not all use the same words to describe it,
right?
But the result and the examples, I think, are pretty exciting. Yesterday, we convened the Sustainability Council for the Promised Neighborhood for the first time, and we talk about cradle to career and wraparound services and all of those kinds of things. Really, fundamentally, it's to work on solutions for intergenerational poverty.
Yes.
And that can't be done in 5 years. And the grant is 5 years. So we have already, in our first, Erin, 30 days, 60 days of our grant, have already thinking about sustainability and how we can make sure that after 5 years, we have additional resources to be able to continue the work that we've already started with a really nice kickstart from the federal government and a lot of matching funds. But it's not going to make a difference unless we go 2 generations, and 2 generations don't happen in 5 years.
Yes.
So I think the story is that all of the business leaders of our community made time yesterday to come in person to talk about sustainability of a program that their role really doesn't happen for 5 more years.
Right.
But I'm already thinking about it in the first 30 or 60 days of the grant.
Yeah, very, very, very exciting. And, very grounded as well, which is very important. So very, very, very exciting. So in terms of the future, and I think you've both now responded a lot of it, part of it is the sustainability of what you're doing right now, what you are putting together. And the other one is the expansion of it, right? The expansion of the vision with other universities and the connections that could happen and the network itself that can be expanded. Is there anything else that you see in terms of the future and your vision for the future? And it's because of your leadership that you can have this vision, right? Because you're making it happen. So is there anything else that you can share with us?
Well, I think higher education is kind of stuck in the industrial age. We've been doing the same thing like this for a long time. I think our lane is wider than higher education as a university.
Yes.
And that is the social innovation that goes along with it, and the collaborations that exist between our campuses and our communities, and the connections with other Ashoka campuses. So I think our lane is as wide as they want it to be, and we are more than happy to be helpful for other campuses that want to kind of follow the same way that we have and make a difference in the community, particularly if it revolves around a promised neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I can give you a couple of just quick concrete examples that have come up just in the last few months since we got announced. One is regarding circular economies and fixing what's going to happen with all those solar panels that the world's not going to know what to do with when they all hit their 25-year life cycles. Well, the Department of Energy is willing to invest in universities that have solutions for that. And because of the innovative work at the University of Evansville, we got a connection to an entrepreneur who is co-writing one of those with us right now. He'd like to work with students across a wide range of disciplines to reimagine, including high school students in the Promised Neighborhood,
Nice.
reimagine what we can do with all of these materials, because we have a manufacturing base and we're considered a super polluter, but we've got a lot of manufacturing expertise, which could be harnessed for that circular economy. And that's just in the last 2 weeks. And then we also got, it's a small example, but it just warmed my heart because we can do this now. Got a voicemail from a young student at a school, and she said, we don't have a working water fountain. And now we have a student who's doing hydration stations, which is accessible, free, clear, and cold filtered water for everyone. And I can directly connect her to that student to then go to that school, raise the funds, and get them a hydration station. It's just remarkable. We can act on these things now, and it's not that we couldn't before, but it would have taken a lot longer. I would have had to, go out and find the right donor and the grant. But now we're accountable for answering that girl's call, and I couldn't love that more.
Oh, congratulations, Erin. That is, heartwarming for sure.
It's exciting, and our students love it. I mean, that allows them to put their education out in the real world right away.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'm just so grateful and so excited and so proud that, you are at Changemaker Campus, and Erin is a stellar change leader. And we're just very, very excited for the future and for the present, for what's happening right now, and for your story, how your story tells, what can be done to other universities as well. And we're looking forward to talking about this example in the next conference next week. ICERC, and hopefully doing research, and maybe can be longitudinal and tell that story even more. So thank you so much. Are there any other comments before I stop the recording?
I very much appreciate the opportunity. It's a pleasure to meet you.
You too. Thank you.
Good to see you, Edie. I look forward to hopefully seeing you in person sometime soon.
Yes, exactly.
Safe travels to the conference.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.